maybe I should say, is there anything you agree with so far?
The diagnosis.
The diagnosis?
Like the cultural diagnosis, we've got a problem
Okay.
out there, the problem's also in here.
Yes.
For ill-equipped,
Okay.
perhaps.
All right. Okay. Other observations? Things that you want to agree with at this point, but you recognize?
Well, at our table here, we were all very, very consistent with thoughts about technology, how it does make us, even though it creates more efficiency, we make ourselves a lot more busier.
Yes. Okay. So you can see how technology has made us busier. Okay. Other agreements? Yes?
Choices in companies that are high stress may cause individuals to engage in extramarital affairs after hours, or it just causes family breakdown and so forth. And the companies don't even see themselves accountable for that. They don't see anything wrong with how they're running people's lives. There's no accountability.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think I said that, but you're right that that's an implication of what I'm saying. That is, a lot of the ways that our country or our culture gets run, a lot of the ways that work happens and other priorities get emphasized in our culture, erode commitments, erode relationships, erode family life. So I think that's hugely important. What are some of the questions that you have so far? Questions or rebuttals or first pushback? Yes?
How do you get the balance?
How do you get the balance?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. We're going to work on that. How do you get the balance? Yes, sir.
The question that I didn't get from the get-go is that, why is this particular path in the middle of Spain a pilgrimage? Yeah, I don't understand the history. It's been, you said it was pilgrims for 1,000 years, but from where to where? I mean, it was a pilgrimage in Spain. I can see perhaps making a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, perhaps. I'm not even sure if I can gather that yet.
Okay, all right, so I'll do that in a moment.
All right.
A moment. Yes. Yes,
Is there a rebuttal on the use of saying that technology is to blame versus ourselves to blame, not being able to make the prioritization?
Okay, so it's really important to be careful about the language, and I don't remember exactly how I said it because.
I don't think it was you. It's a discussion of saying technology.
Oh, okay.
It makes us busy. Technology doesn't make it busy.
So
our inability to use it properly.
So, well, that's when I talk about it, I try to be really careful to say that the issue is our use of technology. But actually, it's our use of technology, but also that if we're not conscious in our use of technology, our technology can form us in ways that we might not want to go. I mean, I thought about this morning, driving here on the 401 in my diesel jet. I have a diesel jet. I really like it. And I've never cared about cars. I've never really liked cars. I just sort of bought a car that was useful, but I bought this one, or we bought this one a few years ago. We bought it used, and we really like it for all kinds of reasons. But, you know, I notice some things when I drive the diesel jet on the 401, for example. Whenever I drive, I always say, okay, today I'm going to drive the speed limit. And I always say that. I didn't say it today because I was worried about getting here on time. But I almost always say, today I'm going to drive the speed limit. But a couple things happen. One is, if you drive 100 kilometers on the 401, everyone zips by you, right? And some of them are annoyed with you, right? And if you're not paying attention, there's just something about what everybody else does that eventually sweeps us along, right? And so, without meaning to, if I stop paying attention to my speedometer, after a while I see I'm doing 120, like everybody else. Actually, I bought it in the States, so it's in miles, but that's another story. The other thing that I noticed is when I hit 120 or higher, when I hit 80 miles on the speedometer, that's halfway on the speedometer. And so, at some level, the speedometer is communicating to me, you're only going half as fast as you could really go. Right? There's something about the design that communicates to us. And so what I would suggest is that as we think about how we use technology, we have to think about how we're being swept up by the agenda of other people, and we have to pay attention to how the design can lure us in ways that we don't want to go. Now, the Jetta also has some features that help me slow down or help me be more obedient. So one feature is cruise control, for example. So if I put the cruise control and keep my foot off the accelerator, I'm more faithful and consistent, right? And the other thing is, the Jetta has this thing that shows me what my mileage is. Like, so as my speed goes up, my mileage drops down. And not only do I claim to be concerned about the environment, I am also concerned about my wallet. And so in that case, the technology is giving me feedback to help me be more consistent with my values. So it's never all one or all another. But one of the things that I would say is that we live in a culture that sings the praises of technology and the use of technology. We live in a culture that really does not help us think deeply and carefully about some of the downsides. All the advertisements are really trying to lure us into using devices and purchase goods, right? So it's important for us as Christians to start raising questions. Now, but here's another thing that I've noticed, and that is when I started working on this book, Living into Focus, I would go carefully and regularly through magazines and newspapers, and I would clip every article that raised questions about technology use. And then I would file them according to categories, and that's partly how I did the research for this book. And one of the things that I noticed was those articles were occasional. They were infrequent. But what I've noticed in the last few years is that those articles are becoming far more common. In the newspaper, I see articles regularly in the news section, in the lifestyle section, in the sports section, in the business section, on and on and on. I see it in magazines. So I think in our culture, there is starting to emerge an awareness that we need to raise these kind of questions. But I don't actually see Christian press raising these questions yet very much. So I think we as Christians are a little behind the ball on that. Were there other places of pushback?
Over here.
Yes.
You had mentioned something about the only people that take breaks in the workplace are smokers. So just from my perspective at my workplace, that's an issue of animosity, because if you're the smoker that's taking the break, you're probably taking a half hour out of the workday, company time. I'm not the smoker, so how can you get the half hour off and I don't? So it's really it's not perceived as them taking a break, reflection. It's perceived as a big waste of time. So it's problematic.
It's problematic, and it fits in with the comment over here actually, and that is if our businesses and our employers were trying to build us into the best possible people that we ought to be, and they were concerned about, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but if they really thought about what it means to be concerned about people's health and family life, they would be building in breaks. And but there's something about our culture that is happy to resist having breaks, and so those who want to take breaks are set off against those who don't take breaks, right? And that actually is a big issue in our culture, because how do you learn to live with a Sabbath, for example, when we live in a culture that downplays the importance of Sabbath? How do you set aside time for your family if we have an employer who says, if you want to advance, you can't have that much time for your family? So those kind of painful questions arise all the time. Any more pushbacks at this point? Yes, sir?
One I am thinking about is the fact that I was thinking about what you mentioned about the elders, they had to take about a couple of years because they were so busy. On the other hand, I find myself where I find that, on the other hand, we hear the call from Christ himself, like to put the hand